Well, this is my story. I thought I'd speak about the time when I was a child during the war. I was 11-year-old when the war started, and I was just going into grammar school. And I remember the first day vividly listening to Neville Chamberlain, who was the Prime Minister at the time, and he said that the negotiations were going on with Germany and they had broken down. So now we are at war with Germany. And that really hit home because I was rather worried about my brother and sister. My brother was in the RAF. He had joined, he'd passed an exam to go into the RAF college in Horton, and he was taught how to service Spitfires. And that, of course, put him in the front line, all along the line. He had to go to London, and he was bombed out times many. All the aerodromes were bombed, and they had to sleep in the hangar. And sometimes he would also have to work almost 24 hours to keep the Spitfires flying, because they were up and down and they were exhausted as well, really. And then they was putting digs, and the digs, of course, they were bombed as well. So, and one night he did give me a story. He said hot water was always, failing up in London at the time. None of the boilers worked, of course. And this time where he was staying, they said there's hot water upstairs. Oh, good. So up he went to have a bath. And he was lying in this bath in lovely hot water, beautiful. And the siren went, and a landmine landed 2 or 3 doors down from him and blew the windows in all over him, and he was covered in glass inside the bath and so on, so he had to try and step out and step onto the floor, which was also glass. And he said, talk about the night of 1,000 cuts, that was me. And then my sister was nursing. She went nursing to Hereford, and she was nursing in the hospital there, Home Lacey. And of course, the GIs came over, the American soldiers came over, and they taught them how to dance and jitterbug and jive, the lot. So when she came home on leave, she taught me how to jitterbug and jive. Oh, and I really hot stuff at it. And I used to go to all the big balls in Ammanford because my parents used to like dancing as well. And they had to take me because I was 11, 12-year-old. I couldn't be left on my own, and I didn't want to be anyway. So they took me to the ambulance ball, the police ball, and so on, and I dolled on my best dress. And if I could, I sneak a bit of lipstick. But anyway, so I really thoroughly enjoyed. But Beryl, then, my sister, she went back to Hereford, and then they had the D-Day landing in France, and the Yanks were in Omaha Beach, and they were slaughtered. They were gunned down terribly, and a shell fell just behind my Leroux Campbell, his name was. He was from Scottish descent. His grandparents and parents were Scottish, and they'd emigrated to the States. And he was absolutely shattered because a shell fell right behind him, and his brother was on his side, and it exploded, and his brother was killed, and he had shrapnel in his spine, and he had it until the day he died. And he was taken back then to Hereford Hospital to be doctored and so on. Of course, met up again with my sister, and they got married. They got married in All Saints Church in Ammanford, and there were coupons at the time, and we didn't have any coupons to spend on clothes. Shoes, I think we only had 20 coupons to last for, I don't know, maybe a year. And shoes took 7, stockings were 2, and that sort of thing, you see. So when it came to wedding time, there was no place for clothes. And what happened, one of the nurses in the hospital, her aunt had got married previously, and she had the most beautiful, gorgeous wedding gown, which was bought before the war. And that she loaned that to every nurse that got married in the hospital. And it was practically worn out by the end, but they all thoroughly enjoyed it, and it was marvellous. It was something quite unique. But anyway, when the war was declared a bit, I thought, well, they're both in the front line, my brother in London and my sister nursing, so they were ready there to take the casualties and take whatever was thrown at them. Of course, everything was rationed, and we had to have coupons to buy food and coupons to buy clothes. And my mother was a seamstress. She was taught by a tailoress, and she could sew. So to get material to make my clothes, and when I got married, to make my wedding outfit, it had to be a 2-piece, because there was no wedding dress around when I was getting married. So we went down to Llanelli Market, and she bought some black market material at a price, of course, and she made me a suit. She also had my grandmother's hat, which she redesigned and put flowers on. Because everything was rationed, we all had to dig for victory, and my father cut down a set of tools for me to dig the garden and weed and so on. So I used to help in the garden, and we grew all our own vegetables and tomatoes and all that sort of thing. We also had chickens on the top of the garden, and my father built a pigsty and bought a pig. But I had to feed the pig before going to school in the morning, so I had to carry a bucket of swill with stuff and up to the pig and slosh it into his trough. And of course I invariably spilt some on my shoes, and I used to curse them. But there we are. We had bacon and meat. When the time to slaughter the pig came along, me, bloodthirsty kid that I must have been, I wanted to see it all, and I did. My mother used to make faggots out of the liver and the kidneys and the heart and the innards. She used to make brawn from the head, and she used to make a bacon from the cheeks and the carcass of the pig itself. Of course, we used to rub it with saltpeter and then salt for the hams and the sides of bacon, and they were put on layers in the pantry on the vank. That was a slate slab we had there, quite a big slate slab. And there was this pig stretched out there, and it had to be there for quite some weeks. And then when it was thoroughly cured, salted, my mother would wrap it in a muslin or in an old pillowcase, perhaps, and hang them up. The 2 hams and the 2 sides were hanging up in the kitchen.